Commander Kim Tae-ho watched the big screen in his control room. The annual fleet review was starting, and every important alien species was showing off their best ships. The Altarians brought their crystal ships that sparkled like diamonds in space. The Valkyrians showed massive living ships that looked like giant whales swimming through the stars. Each alien race tried to prove they had the strongest and prettiest fleet in the galaxy. Then came humanity's turn. Kim felt his stomach drop as he saw their small group of ships on the screen. 12 old cargo ships that humans had fixed up with whatever parts they could find. The ships looked rough and patched together compared to the smooth alien vessels. Paint was chipped in places, and you could see where new parts had been welded onto old hulls. The alien voices on the radio started laughing. Kim heard Admiral Kethval, a tall blue Zephyrian with 4 arms, making jokes about humans. "Look at those clever little scavengers," Kethval said with a voice like grinding metal. "They pick up our garbage and call it a fleet. How amusing." Other aliens joined in the laughter. The Craxans, who looked like giant red lizards, made hissing sounds that meant they thought something was funny. The Quitari, small gray beings with big black eyes, clicked their tongues in what Kim knew was their way of showing they thought humans were silly. Kim turned off the radio and looked around his command center on the space station New Busan. His crew kept working at their computers, but he could see the anger in their faces. Engineer Park So-young slammed her coffee cup down harder than needed. Captain Lee Dong-woo cracked his knuckles and muttered bad words under his breath. "Sir," said Park So-young, looking up from her computer screen, "we have a salvage job in the Kepler sector. 3 destroyed ships from some old battle." "What kind of ships?" Kim asked, unknown. "The computer says they're really old. Maybe from the Void Wars," Kim nodded. The Void Wars were something that happened long ago, before any of the current alien races became powerful. Most people thought they were just stories. Old battles between mysterious aliens that no one remembered anymore. "Take the Iron Phoenix and check it out," Kim told Captain Lee Dong-woo. "Might be some good metal we can use." 2 days later, Lee Dong-woo's voice came through the radio from deep space. He sounded excited. "Commander, you need to see this. These aren't normal wrecks." The video feed showed 3 huge ships floating in empty space. They were black as night and covered in strange patterns that seemed to move when you looked at them. The ships were bigger than anything Kim had ever seen, but they were clearly very old and badly damaged. "Park, what do you think?" Kim asked. Park So-young studied the images on her screen. She was young, maybe 25, but she was the smartest engineer Kim had ever met. She could look at any piece of alien technology and figure out how it worked. "The metal is strange," she said. "It's not like anything in our computer files. And look at these patterns. They're not just decoration. I think they might be some kind of technology. Can we salvage anything useful? Maybe, but we'll need to be careful. There's still power running through parts of these ships somehow." Kim made his decision. "Bring back whatever you can carry. Be safe." 3 weeks later, the Iron Phoenix returned to New Busan with its cargo hold full of strange metal pieces and mysterious devices. Park So-young spent days studying everything they brought back. She set up a special workshop in the lower levels of the station, where she could work without being disturbed. Ambassador Choi Mi-ra visited the station during this time. She was humanity's representative to the Galactic Coalition, and she always looked tired these days. The other alien races didn't take humans seriously, and her job was to try to change their minds. "How are things going with the Coalition?" Kim asked her over dinner in the station's small cafeteria. Choi Mi-ra shook her head. "Not good. They're talking about giving us even smaller jobs. Some aliens think humans shouldn't be allowed to have any real ships at all. They want us to stick to cleaning up space garbage. What do you think we should do? Keep our heads down, work hard. Maybe in 50 years they'll respect us a little more." Kim didn't like that answer, but he understood. Humans were the newest species in the galaxy. They'd only been traveling in space for about 200 years. The other aliens had been building starships for thousands of years. Down in her workshop, Park So-young made an amazing discovery. She was studying a small device from one of the ancient ships when it suddenly started working. Lights began flashing, and the device seemed to scan the room around it. Then it did something incredible. It started changing. The device grew new parts. Metal flowed like water, creating new circuits and connections. Within an hour, the small device had become something completely different. It had learned about the human technology in the workshop and made itself better. Park So-young called Kim immediately. "Sir, you need to come down here right now." When Kim arrived, Park showed him what the device could do. She connected it to a broken radio, and the device fixed it instantly. But it didn't just fix the radio. It made the radio better. The signal was clearer and stronger than any radio Kim had ever heard. "This is impossible," Kim said. "No, sir, it's not impossible. It's just really, really advanced. This technology doesn't just work, it learns. It gets better every time it's used." Park picked up another piece from the ancient ships. "If we could figure out how this works, if we could build our own version of it, we could build ships that get stronger instead of weaker," Kim finished. That night, Kim stood in his office looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, aliens were laughing at humanity's small fleet of patched-up ships. They thought humans were just good at cleaning up garbage and fixing old things. Maybe they were right. But maybe being good at fixing things and making them work better was exactly what humanity needed. Park So-young had found something amazing in that space junk. Something that could change everything. Kim made a decision that would change human history. He sent a secret message to Admiral Yang Kyung-suk back on Earth. The message was simple. "We found something. Send more people. Tell no one else. The age of human scavenging was about to end. The age of human evolution was about to begin." 6 months after Park So-young's discovery, a secret research base was hidden deep inside the asteroid mining station Series 7. The place looked like any other mining operation from the outside, but inside, the best human scientists and engineers worked on the most important project in human history. Dr. Han Ji-woo arrived on a supply ship, pretending to be just another mining worker. He was actually a xenoarchaeologist, someone who studied the remains of ancient alien civilizations. He had studied the Void Wars for years, but most people thought his work was useless. Now his knowledge was the most valuable thing humanity had. "The ships you found are definitely from the architects," Dr. Han told Park So-young as they studied the ancient technology together. "We don't know much about them, but they fought in the Void Wars over 10,000 years ago." "What happened to them?" Park asked. "Nobody knows. They just disappeared one day. But they left behind some amazing technology scattered across the galaxy. Most aliens ignore it because they think it's broken junk." Park smiled. "Good thing humans are good at fixing broken junk." Admiral Yang Kyung-suk visited the secret base every few weeks. She was an old woman with gray hair and tired eyes, but her mind was still sharp. She had been Kim Tae-ho's teacher at the Space Academy 20 years ago. "How long before we can build a real ship?" she asked during one visit. 3 months, maybe 4, Park answered. "We're learning how the architect technology works, but it's not easy. It's like trying to understand a computer that thinks for itself." The breakthrough came when Park figured out that architect technology wasn't just smart. It was alive in a way. Not alive like an animal, but alive like a learning program that could grow and change. The ancient aliens had built machines that could think and improve themselves. "The amazing part is how it works with human technology," Park explained to the research team. "Other alien races try to copy architect technology exactly. But when we mix it with human engineering ideas, something new happens, something better." Human engineering was different from alien engineering. Humans built things to be fixed and improved. They made ships with extra parts and backup systems. If something broke, humans could repair it with whatever they had available. Other aliens built perfect ships that were hard to fix when something went wrong. The first test ship was called the Indomitable. It looked terrible. The hull was made from parts of old human cargo ships welded together with pieces of alien metal. The engines were a mix of human fusion drives and mysterious architect power systems. Pipes and wires were visible on the outside because the ship had been built for testing, not for looking good. Captain Lim Hyun-jin was chosen to be the test pilot. He was young and brave, but more importantly, he was good at thinking fast when things went wrong. "It feels strange," he reported during his first flight. "The ship responds before I even finish giving it commands. Like it's reading my mind." "That's the architect technology learning from you," Park explained through the radio. "Try some combat maneuvers." For weeks, Captain Lim ran practice battles against computer simulations. Each time, the Indomitable performed better. The ship learned new ways to fly, new ways to use its weapons, new ways to protect itself. But the real test came when pirates attacked Series 7. The pirates thought they were attacking a simple mining station. They brought 3 ships and expected an easy fight. What they found was the Indomitable waiting for them. Captain Lim's ship didn't just fight the pirates. It studied them. When the pirates fired their weapons, the Indomitable's shields learned how to block that type of energy. When the pirates tried fancy flying maneuvers, the ship learned those moves and did them better. The battle lasted only 20 minutes. When it was over, 2 pirate ships were floating helplessly in space with their engines destroyed. The third ship was trying to run away, but the Indomitable was faster and caught it easily. "This is impossible," the pirate captain said when Lim forced him to surrender. "Our ships are military grade. Yours looks like a flying garbage pile." "Yeah," Lim replied with a smile, "but it's our flying garbage pile." The best part came after the battle. The Indomitable had scanned the pirate weapons and learned how they worked. Within hours, the ship had grown new weapon systems based on pirate technology, but improved with architect learning systems. It's not just defending itself, Park realized as she studied the data. It's making itself stronger from every fight. Word started spreading through the galaxy about strange human ships. Merchants reported seeing vessels that looked like collections of scrap metal, but flew better than anything they'd ever seen. Pirates started avoiding areas where humans operated because they heard stories about ships that became more dangerous the longer you fought them. Ambassador Choi Mira faced tough questions at coalition meetings. "What are humans doing in the Outer Rim?" asked Admiral Kethaval, the Zephyrian who had laughed at human ships just months earlier. "Standard salvage operations," Choi Mira answered carefully. "Cleaning up debris, recovering valuable materials. Our sensors show human ships in systems where there should be no debris," said a Kraxan representative. "And these ships don't match any human designs in our database." "Humans are always modifying their ships," Choi Mira said. "We're good at making improvements with limited resources." "Too good, perhaps," Admiral Kethaval replied suspiciously. Back at Series 7, the research team was building more ships. Each new vessel was different because the architect technology adapted to whatever human parts were available. Some ships were fast scouts. Others were heavy fighters. All of them could learn and grow stronger. Dr. Han Jiwoo made another important discovery while studying ancient architect ruins. "I think the Void Wars weren't fought against alien invaders," he told the team. "The data suggests the architects were fighting something else, something that consumed entire star systems." "What kind of enemy could do that?" Admiral Yang asked. "I don't know. But the architects built their learning technology to fight this enemy. They needed ships that could adapt to threats they'd never seen before." Park So-young felt a chill when she heard this. If the architects were that advanced and they still lost, maybe they didn't lose, Dr. Han said thoughtfully. Maybe they found a different solution. Maybe they found a way to make sure someone else would be ready when the enemy came back. As more human ships began patrolling the Outer Rim systems, alien governments started paying attention. The Galactic Coalition had always seen humans as useful workers who could fix things and clean up messes. Now they were seeing human ships that seemed to break the laws of physics. "We need to find out what they're really doing," Admiral Kethaval told the Coalition Council. "No species advances this quickly without help." But humans weren't getting help from anyone else. They were just doing what humans did best, taking broken things and making them work better. The difference was that now they had architect technology that could learn from human creativity. In his office on New Busan, Commander Kim Tae-ho looked at reports of successful missions across 12 star systems. Human ships were not only surviving encounters with pirates and hostile aliens, they were winning easily. Each victory made the ship stronger. So-young, he called to his chief engineer. "How many ships can we build with the materials we have?" "Maybe 50 more," she answered. "But we're running out of architect technology to study. Then we need to find more ancient ships. That could take years." Kim smiled. "Then we'd better get started. The galaxy is going to learn that humans don't just collect garbage. We turn garbage into something amazing." Fleet Admiral Baek Chan-woo stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the enemy fleet approach. 300 Kraxan warships filled the space around New Sol Colony like angry red stars. Each ship was 3 times bigger than anything humans had ever built. Their weapons could destroy entire cities with a single shot. "Admiral, incoming message from the Kraxan fleet," reported his communications officer. "Put it on screen." The image showed General Vextar, a massive Kraxan with red scales and yellow eyes. His species looked like giant lizards that walked on 2 legs and breathed fire. "Human Admiral," Vextar said in a voice like grinding rocks, "surrender your pathetic colony now and we will make your deaths quick." Admiral Bayek was a calm man who rarely showed emotion, but his crew could see the anger in his eyes. "General Vexitar," he replied, "you picked the wrong species to threaten." Vexitar laughed, showing rows of sharp teeth. "You humans amuse me. Do you see our Crimson Fleet? 300 ships of pure destruction. How many ships do you have to defend this worthless colony?" 47 ships, Admiral Bayek answered honestly. The Kraxan general laughed even harder. 47 pieces of scrap metal against the might of the Kraxan Empire. "This will be over in minutes." "You're probably right," Admiral Beck said. "It will be over quickly." He cut the communication and turned to his crew. "All ships prepare for battle. Remember what these ships can do. Trust the technology and trust each other." The human fleet looked nothing like the sleek Kraxan warships. Captain Shin Yujin's destroyer Resilient was covered in patches of different colored metal. Captain Oh Soo-jin's cruiser Iron Will had so many weapon systems bolted onto its hull that it looked like a flying weapons store. Major Kang Hee-rin's assault ship Thunderstrike was small and ugly, but it moved through space like a hunting animal. On planets across the galaxy, people watched the battle on their screens. The Galactic Coalition had prepared evacuation ships, expecting to rescue human survivors after the Kraxans destroyed New Sol. Nobody expected humans to actually win against such impossible odds. "Human fleet? This is your last chance," General Vextar broadcast on all channels. "Surrender now or face complete destruction." "Kraxan fleet," Admiral Bayek replied. "You came here to show the galaxy that strong species should rule over weak ones. Today you're going to learn something about humans. We don't know how to surrender." The battle began when the Kraxan ships opened fire. Hundreds of energy beams and missile salvos filled space with deadly light. Any normal fleet would have been destroyed in the first few seconds, but the human ships weren't normal anymore. As the Kraxan weapons hit them, the architect technology inside each vessel started learning. Shield systems adapted to block energy weapons. Hull armor changed its structure to absorb missile impacts. Engines became more efficient under stress. Captain Shin Yu-jin watched her ship's screens in amazement. "The shields are actually getting stronger," she reported. "Each hit is making us harder to damage." "Same here," called Captain Oh Soo-jin from the Iron Will. "My weapons are learning from their targeting systems. I can see their weak spots now." The Kraxans expected their first attack to destroy most of the human ships. Instead, they saw 47 vessels that looked damaged but were still fighting. Worse, the human ships were starting to fight back more effectively. Major Kang Hye-rin led her Thunderstrike straight into the middle of the Kraxan formation. The small ship dodged between massive enemy vessels, its weapon systems learning and adapting with every shot fired. "I'm reading their armor composition," she reported. "My guns are modifying their energy output to punch through Kraxan shields." General Vextar couldn't believe what he was seeing. "Impossible. Our weapons should have destroyed them already." His tactical officer, a younger Kraxan named Sub-Commander Kreloth, studied the sensor readings with growing fear. "General, their ships are changing. Each time we hit them, they become more resistant to our weapons. That's not possible. No technology can do that." "But sir, look at these readings. That human destroyer just took a direct hit from our most powerful beam weapon, the same weapon that could destroy one of our own ships, but the human ship is still fighting." Captain Shin Yu-jin's Resilient had indeed taken a direct hit from a Kraxan planet-killer beam. The weapon was designed to crack the surface of worlds. It should have vaporized her ship completely. Instead, something incredible happened. The architect technology didn't just absorb the energy from the weapon. It learned how the weapon worked and began building a copy of it. Within minutes, the Resilient had grown new weapon systems based on Kraxan planet-killer technology. "Admiral," Captain Shin reported with excitement in her voice, "I've got a new toy to play with." The Resilient fired its new weapon at a Kraxan battleship. The enemy vessel's shields collapsed instantly, and the ship began spinning helplessly through space. Across the battlefield, other human ships were having similar experiences. Every Kraxan weapon that hit them made them stronger. Every enemy tactic they faced was learned and countered. The human fleet was evolving in the middle of the battle. Major Kang Hye-rin decided to try something crazy. She flew her Thunderstrike directly at a Kraxan dreadnought, the biggest ship in their fleet. Instead of trying to destroy it with weapons, she used her ship's learning systems to study every detail of the enemy vessel. "I'm getting complete blueprints of their technology," she reported. "Hull composition, weapon systems, power generation, everything. Kang, get out of there, Admiral Black ordered. That ship has enough firepower to destroy a moon. Not yet, sir. I'm learning something important. The Kraxan dreadnought fired everything it had at the small human ship. But Major Kang had already learned enough. Her ship's defenses adapted to each weapon type as it fired. Her engines learned to move in ways that made her ship almost impossible to hit. When she finally pulled away from the enemy dreadnought, the Thunderstrike had completely changed. It now had copies of every weapon system on the massive Kraxan ship, but improved with architect learning technology. All ships, Admiral Bayek called. Major Kang has just given us the key to winning this battle. Use your learning systems to study enemy technology, then turn their own weapons against them. The tide of battle shifted completely. Human ships began hunting Kraxan vessels like predators. Each enemy ship they studied made the entire human fleet stronger. The architect technology shared information between ships, so when one vessel learned something new, all the others learned it too. General Vextar watched in horror as his mighty Crimson Fleet began falling apart. Ships that should have been invincible were being defeated by vessels that looked like flying junkyard scraps. How are they doing this? He demanded. Sub-Commander Kreloth had been studying the human ships throughout the battle. General, I think their ships are alive somehow. They're learning from us, getting stronger every time we attack them. That's impossible. Sir, we've lost 150 ships. The humans have lost only 3. And those 3 ships that were destroyed somehow passed their knowledge to the surviving vessels before they died. General Vextar realized the battle was lost. His proud Crimson Fleet was being destroyed by scavengers who turned garbage into weapons of war. All ships retreat immediately! But it was too late for many Kraxan vessels. The human ships had learned enough about Kraxan technology to disable their engines without destroying them. Over 70 enemy ships found themselves floating helplessly in space, captured by vessels they had thought were easy targets. When the battle ended, Admiral Beck looked around at his fleet. The ships were battered and scarred, but they were stronger than ever. Each vessel had grown new weapons and systems during the fight. They had learned not just how to survive against impossible odds, but how to turn their enemy's strength against them. Status report? He called. 44 ships operational and combat ready, came the reply. 3 ships lost, but their final data transmissions were received by all surviving vessels. Casualties? Surprisingly light, sir. The learning systems protected most of our crew compartments. Admiral Bayek nodded and opened a channel to the entire galaxy. This is Admiral Bayek Chanwu of the Human Defense Fleet. The Kraxan attack on New Sol has been defeated. To any species considering humanity an easy target, I suggest you reconsider. We don't just fight back. We learn from every battle and become stronger. Across the galaxy, alien leaders watched the battle recordings in stunned silence. The species they had dismissed as clever scavengers had just defeated one of the most powerful military forces in known space. And they had done it with ships that looked like flying junk piles. Ambassador Choi Mi-Ra received emergency calls from coalition leaders within hours. Everyone wanted to know how humans had suddenly become so powerful, but humans weren't interested in explaining themselves anymore. They had proven something important. It didn't matter what your ships looked like or how perfect your technology was. What mattered was the ability to learn, adapt, and grow stronger from every challenge. The galaxy would never laugh at human scrap again. Grand Admiral Yoon Sang-min walked through the halls of the secret research facility, hidden beneath the surface of Mars. 3 years had passed since the Battle of New Sol, and the human fleet had grown to over 800 ships. Each vessel was unique, having learned and adapted from different encounters across the galaxy. Captain Osu Jin, report, he said as he entered the intelligence center. Captain O was humanity's best spy and investigator. She had been studying architect ruins across the galaxy, trying to learn more about the ancient technology that had made humanity so powerful. Admiral, I've made a discovery that changes everything, she said, her face pale with shock. The architects weren't an alien race. What do you mean? Sir, I found genetic material in one of their oldest ruins. I had Dr. Park Jin-ho run tests on it. She paused, looking nervous. The architects were human. Grand Admiral Yoon stared at her in disbelief. That's impossible. Humans have only been in space for 200 years. The architect ruins are over 10,000 years old. That's what I thought too, but the genetic evidence is clear. The architects were humans from the future. Somehow they sent their technology back in time. Dr. Park Jin-ho entered the room at that moment. He was Park So-young's father, and one of the smartest scientists humanity had ever produced. But he looked older than his years, as if he carried a heavy burden. "Admiral," Dr. Park said quietly, "there's something I need to tell you, something I've kept secret for 30 years. "What kind of secret?" Dr. Park took a deep breath. "I was part of a team that found the first architect ruins in 2357. We discovered genetic evidence back then that suggested the architects were human. We also found something else, a message." He activated a holographic display that showed ancient symbols. This message was hidden in every architect ruin we've ever found. It took us decades to translate it. The symbols shifted and changed, forming words in English. "The Devourers come. Prepare humanity. Time is running out." Grand Admiral Yoon felt a chill run down his spine. "Who are the Devourers?" "We don't know for certain," Dr. Park replied. "But based on what we've learned, there's something that exists outside our galaxy. Something that consumes not just planets or stars, but entire realities. The future humans who became the architects fought them and lost." Captain Oh Soo-jin continued the explanation. "But before they lost, the architects found a way to send their technology back in time. They couldn't change their own timeline, but they could give their ancestors the tools to fight better." "You mean us?" Admiral Yoon said. "Yes, sir. We are the ancestors they were trying to help. The adaptive technology, the learning systems, everything we've discovered, it was all designed to prepare humanity for a war that hasn't happened yet." Dr. Park activated another display. "The timeline shows that the Devourers will arrive in our galaxy within the next 5 years. When they do, humanity needs to be ready to lead the defense, not just for Earth, but for all life in the galaxy." Admiral Yoon sat down heavily. "How long have you known this?" "I've suspected for years," Dr. Park admitted. "But I needed to be certain. There's a secret organization that has been guiding humanity's development. We've been placing the right people in the right positions, making sure the architect technology was found by people who could understand it. People like your daughter. So-young is brilliant. But yes, I made sure she was assigned to the salvage operations where architect ruins were most likely to be found." Suddenly, alarms began ringing throughout the facility. "Admiral," came a voice over the intercom, "the Coalition fleet has arrived. They're demanding we surrender all architect technology to them. Immediately." Admiral Yoon looked at the screens, showing 500 ships from 12 different alien species surrounding Mars. The Coalition had finally decided that humanity's power was too dangerous to ignore. "How many ships do we have ready?" he asked. 100 ships are in the Sol system," Captain O replied. "But Admiral, they have 5 times as many vessels. Numbers aren't everything. We've learned that much." The Coalition fleet was led by Admiral Cathval, the Zephyrian who had once laughed at human ships. His voice came through the communication system, sounding much less amused than before. "Humans of Earth," he announced, "by order of the Galactic Coalition, you will immediately surrender all adaptive technology and submit to Coalition oversight. You have become too dangerous to operate independently." Admiral Yoon opened a channel to respond. "Admiral Cathval, humanity thanks the Coalition for their concern, but we must decline your generous offer. This is not a request, human. We have 500 ships. You cannot possibly resist. We've heard that before. It didn't work out well for the Kraxans. The Kraxans were overconfident fools. We have studied your technology and prepared countermeasures." Admiral Yoon smiled grimly. "The problem with countermeasures is that our ships learn to counter the countermeasures. The first Battle of Terra began when Coalition forces attempted to disable human ships with electromagnetic pulse weapons designed to shut down adaptive systems. But the architect technology had been designed to survive anything, including weapons that attacked its basic functions. Captain Nam Woo-seok commanded the human flagship Eternal Phoenix, a ship that had grown and evolved through dozens of battles. When the Coalition EMP weapons hit his vessel, the ship didn't shut down. Instead, it studied the electromagnetic attack and learned to use it as a power source. "All ships," Admiral Yoon commanded, "do not destroy Coalition vessels unless absolutely necessary. Disable and capture them. We need to show the galaxy that we're protectors, not conquerors." The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships moved like living creatures, flowing around enemy attacks and learning from every weapon fired at them. When coalition ships tried to ram human vessels, the human ships absorbed the impact and learned to turn kinetic energy into shield power. Commander John Bora led a squadron of smaller ships that danced around massive coalition battleships like sharks around whales. Her ships learned the enemy formations and began predicting their movements before the aliens even made them. "Admiral," she reported, "the coalition ships are becoming predictable. Our learning systems have figured out their tactical patterns." Within 4 hours, the coalition fleet was defeated. Not destroyed, disabled. Human ships had learned to target specific systems without causing permanent damage. Coalition vessels floated helplessly in space while human ships grew stronger from every new technology they had encountered. Admiral Kethaval found himself a prisoner aboard the Eternal Phoenix. Face to face with Admiral Yoon, how? Was all he could ask. "Because we're not trying to dominate the galaxy," Admiral Yoon explained. "We're trying to save it. There's something coming that will make our little disagreements seem very unimportant." "What are you talking about?" Admiral Yoon showed him the architect message about the Devourers. "Our own descendants from the future sent us the tools we needed to fight something that will consume everything we know. Every species, every planet, every star." Kethaval's forearms trembled as he read the translation. This cannot be real. It's real. And when these Devourers arrive, the galaxy will need ships that can adapt to threats we've never imagined. Ships that can learn and grow stronger when facing the impossible. But why humans? Why not give this technology to a more advanced species? Admiral Yoon smiled. "Because advanced species try to make perfect technology. Humans make technology that can be fixed when it breaks. And in a war against something that consumes realities, you need technology that can survive anything and keep learning." Dr. Park Jin-ho entered the room with new data. "Admiral, our deep space sensors are detecting something at the edge of the galaxy. Something massive moving toward us. How long do we have?" 2 years. Maybe less." Admiral Yoon turned back to Admiral Kethaval. "The Coalition has a choice. You can keep fighting us and waste time we don't have, or you can work with us to prepare for what's coming." Kethaval looked at the sensor data showing the approaching threat. "What do you need?" "Every ship you have retrofitted with human adaptive technology. Every species working together instead of fighting each other. And an understanding that humanity isn't trying to conquer the galaxy. We're trying to save it." When the news spread across the galaxy that something was coming to destroy everything, the laughter about human scrap ships finally stopped. The species that had once mocked humanity's ugly, patched-together vessels now begged for the technology that could learn and adapt to any threat. Admiral Yoon looked out at the stars and thought about the future humans who had sacrificed their own timeline to give their ancestors a chance. The Devourers were coming, but humanity would be ready. They had turned galactic garbage into the strongest fleet in existence. Now they needed to turn that fleet into salvation for every living thing in the galaxy. Supreme Fleet Admiral Lee Da-woon stood on the bridge of the Eternal Phoenix and watched the edge of the galaxy die. The Devourers had arrived, and they were nothing like anything humanity had imagined. They weren't ships or creatures or machines. They were holes in reality itself, moving through space and consuming everything they touched. "Status report," she called to her bridge crew. 3 star systems completely gone," reported Captain Nam Woo-seok. "The Devourers aren't just destroying planets and stars. They're erasing them from existence. As if they never existed at all. How long until they reach the core systems?" "At their current speed, 6 months. But, Admiral, they're getting faster. Each system they consume seems to make them stronger." Lee Da-yoon nodded grimly. She had been preparing for this moment for 5 years. Ever since the Coalition finally accepted that humanity was their best hope for survival. The human fleet now contained over 3,000 ships, each one a unique evolution of architect technology combined with human engineering. But these weren't the patched-together scrap ships that had once made aliens laugh. After years of continuous learning and adaptation, human vessels had become something entirely new. They looked like living metal creatures that swam through space, their hulls flowing and changing as needed. "Admiral," came a voice from the communications station, "we're receiving surrender requests from the Outer Rim Coalition. Put them through." The screen showed alien leaders from dozens of species, all looking terrified. Admiral Kethaval, now an ally rather than an enemy, spoke for them. "Admiral Lee, the outer systems are requesting immediate evacuation." Our fleets cannot even slow down the Devourers. How many ships do you have left? Perhaps 2,000 vessels from all species combined. But Admiral, our weapons have no effect. Energy beams pass right through them. Missiles explode but cause no damage. It's like trying to fight empty space. Li Da-un had expected this. Send your ships to Rendezvous Point Alpha. We'll integrate them into our defensive lines. Admiral, with respect, even your ships cannot fight something that doesn't exist in normal space. Maybe not, she replied. But that's why we have Commander John Bo-Ra. Commander John Bo-Ra was no longer commanding normal ships. After 5 years of evolution, her vessels existed partially outside regular spacetime. They had learned to adapt not just to weapons and tactics, but to the basic laws of physics themselves. Commander Jion, report your status, Admiral Li called. We're studying the Devourers from the quantum level. Jion's voice came through the communicator, but it sounded strange, as if she was speaking from very far away. These things aren't just consuming matter and energy. They're consuming the possibility of existence itself. Can you fight them? We're learning. Each encounter teaches us more about how they work. The good news is that our ships can adapt to their consumption method. The bad news is that each time they consume something, they become better at consuming. How long do you need? Give me 3 more encounters and I think we can develop a counter-strategy. Admiral Li made the hardest decision of her life. Commander, you have permission to sacrifice 3 more star systems for data. Make sure they don't die for nothing. Understood, Admiral. Across the galaxy, evacuation fleets worked desperately to move populations away from the advancing Devourers. But everyone knew there was nowhere to run. If the Devourers consumed the entire galaxy, they would eventually reach every hiding place. The 4th Battle of the Void took place where the Kepler system used to exist. Commander Jaeon's experimental ships faced 3 Devourers that had grown massive by consuming entire worlds. The human vessels looked tiny against the reality-consuming entities, but they had advantages their enemies didn't understand. Beginning engagement, Jaeon reported. All ships, remember that we're not trying to destroy them. We're trying to understand them. The Devourers attacked by simply existing near the human ships. Reality began breaking down around the vessels, but the architect technology had learned to adapt to impossible conditions. The ships didn't fight the reality distortion. They learned to exist outside normal reality. Fascinating, Jaeon said as her ship phased in and out of normal space. They consume by making things forget they exist. But our learning systems can remember things that reality has forgotten. One of her ships was caught by a Devourer and began to disappear. But as it faded from existence, it transmitted everything it learned to the other vessels. The sacrifice gave humanity the key to fighting beings that consumed possibility itself. Admiral, John reported, her voice now sounding like it came from several dimensions at once. I know how to hurt them. The final battle began at the edge of the galactic core, where millions of stars provided the energy that kept civilization alive. The Devourers had grown enormous, each one the size of a solar system, moving through space like hungry shadows. Supreme Fleet Admiral Li Da-yun commanded a combined fleet of human and alien vessels. The alien ships had been retrofitted with human adaptive technology, but they were still mostly normal ships fighting in normal space. The human ships were something else entirely. Years of adaptation had transformed them into entities that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. They looked like metal angels with wings of pure energy, flying through space and time as easily as through vacuum. All ships, Admiral Li commanded. Remember what we're fighting for. Every species in the galaxy, every world that ever was or ever could be. Captain Nam Wuseok's Eternal Phoenix had evolved far beyond its original form. The ship was now a flowing creature of adaptive metal and quantum energy that could reshape itself at will. Admiral, we're ready to implement Commander John's strategy. Execute the plan. Commander John Bo-Ra's ships moved to surround the largest Devourer, the one that had consumed entire star clusters. But instead of attacking it, they began to do something unprecedented. They started teaching it. You see, John explained as her ships demonstrated their adaptive abilities. Devourers consume things by making reality forget they exist. But we've learned to exist in multiple realities simultaneously. We can remember things that have been forgotten. The Devourer tried to consume her ships, but for the first time in its existence, something resisted. The human vessels didn't just survive the consumption attempt. They adapted to it and began teaching the Devourer how to create instead of destroy. "It's working," John reported. "The Devourer is learning. It's starting to remember all the things it consumed instead of forgetting them." Across the battlefield, other human ships began the same process with other Devourers. Each encounter was dangerous because the Devourers could erase ships from existence. But human adaptive technology had learned to back up consciousness and memory in quantum space where even reality consumers couldn't reach. The battle lasted for days as human ships slowly taught the Devourers how to restore what they had consumed instead of destroying it. It was the ultimate expression of humanity's greatest strength, taking broken things and making them work better. One by one, the Devourers stopped consuming and started creating. Star systems that had been erased from existence began reappearing. Entire civilizations that had been forgotten by reality itself came back into being. "Admiral," Captain Nam reported with wonder in his voice, "the Devourers are becoming creators. They're rebuilding everything they destroyed." Supreme Fleet Admiral Lee Da-yun watched as the largest Devourer transformed into something beautiful, a cosmic gardener that planted new stars and nurtured new worlds. "Status of all Devourers?" "Conversion complete," Commander John replied. "They've learned to create instead of consume. The galaxy is safe, and our fleet evolved beyond anything we imagined. We're no longer just ships, Admiral. We've become guardians of reality itself." As the crisis ended and the galaxy began celebrating, alien leaders finally understood what humanity had accomplished. They hadn't just built stronger ships or better weapons. They had taken beings of pure destruction and taught them to become forces of creation. "How?" asked Admiral Kethaval when he met with Admiral Lee after the battle. "Because that's what humans do," she replied simply. "We see broken things and imagine how to fix them. We see discarded parts and imagine what they could become. The Devourers were just broken beings who had forgotten how to create. We reminded them, but they were consuming reality itself, and we turned them into gardeners who plant new realities. Every challenge is just an opportunity to learn and grow stronger." Years later, Commander John Bora established the Eternal Watch, a fleet of human ships that existed partially outside normal space and time. Their mission was to guard against any future threats to reality itself. The ships no longer looked like vessels built from scrap metal. They appeared as beings of living light that could travel between dimensions and reshape matter with a thought. But they still carried the same spirit that had once turned galactic garbage into the strongest fleet in existence. They were proof that with enough determination and creativity, anything broken could be fixed, anything discarded could be made useful, and any enemy could become an ally. The galaxy no longer laughed at human ingenuity. Instead, they marveled at a species that could look at the end of all existence and see it as just another engineering problem to solve. In the end, humanity hadn't conquered.